to do to do the work collectively that makes entire communities, entire cities better. And the people that we're able to bring together in this space today are the ones who are at the core of that. You all are at the center of making sure that your schools have not only the programming but also the accessibility, and probably most importantly the mindset that this is really a 24/7 everybody coming together operation that is truly for the benefit of all involved. And so, as we go into this next school year, coming off of what clearly has been the most challenging time we've ever had in education, the importance of community schools, I think, in the eyes of everyone, takes another magnitude of importance in terms of the leap forward that we're going to make this year. Because we know that our kids are coming back to school having faced separation, having faced illness in their family, having faced the fear of the coronavirus and the social impact that it has. We know people have been disconnected from their typical communities, from their typical ways of being, the things that they were used to doing, the routines that they were used to having. And so as they come back into school, they're going to be looking for that level of support and leadership and connection, and really looking to the individuals in this room who play such a key role in making that happen. At the public education department, community schools have played a big role in what we've advocated for. They'll continue to play a major role in what we continue to push for and advocate for going forward. We want to make sure that we've got funding not only for planning, but for implementation, and pushing for more and more sustainability to make sure that we can count on these positions, these programs, these services year after year after year, and that we're able to really and truly see the impact. And with that advocacy, of course, comes the white hot spotlight that all of us are going to be under in this year to truly show and demonstrate the impact that the investments in community schools are going to have on our children and on our families. They're going to be looking to all of you as leaders in this field, both throughout the state and also to set a national example and to show the entire country this is the way that community schools should operate. This is how they should be supported, and this is how they should be run. So no pressure coming off of a pandemic, but I know all of you signed up for this challenge. You signed up to be leaders in the community schools movement because you felt it was important to make sure that all of our students and all of our families had access to the kinds of, again, programming services, and most importantly, the mindset that you all bring to your work day in and day out. You signed up for this work because you know that when done really, really well, community schools truly do make a difference on all fronts. They support the academic program and make sure that students have the kinds of additional help that they need if they get behind, or the additional push that they need as they're going ahead, and the ongoing support and encouragement to push through even when it gets challenging. You know that it makes a difference in their social and emotional needs when the right kinds of partnerships are brought to the table, all working of the same accord toward the same school vision, and making sure that students are comprehensively cared for and that their families are fully engaged as partners in the work. And that you know when families and communities are truly and fully engaged through your efforts, that they are more likely to have a positive experience for themselves and for their child. They're more likely to have the supports that they need to make sure that their child is able to participate successfully in the academic program, and they're more likely to be fully engaged with their teacher, with their educational assistants, with their principal, and more likely to see strong and positive student outcomes. So this is the work that we signed up for, and this year more than ever, we're going to get the chance to truly prove what a community school can do. And so a few asks that we have at the department of all of you. Number one, and this one I think will be hopefully an easy one because of all the people that we have in this room, is that you're always showing up with the same level of energy, the same level of enthusiasm, and the same drive for creativity that you bring to the role each and every day. We need that energy, passion, and creativity, not only at your school, but also when you're advocating in the community, when you're talking to your local legislators about the importance of community schools. They need to hear your voices, and we need them to hear directly from you the impact that their programs are having. So when decision makers sit down at the table, they know firsthand what a difference that you're making. Another ask is making sure that we are absolutely fully utilizing every resource that we have available for the benefit of our students. And we know how tough that's been in a year in which we haven't had the ability to see many of our students in person and do some of the programs and services that we would in a normal year. But we want to make sure that every single resource at our disposal is strategically planned and strategically spent to really and truly reach students and fully impact them in all of the ways that we intend to make positive impacts in their lives. And then a third is that we're going to be, the ask is to make sure that you're truly able to tell your story, that you're able to tell it in the human impact, that you're able to tell it in the quantitative impact that you have, and that you're always thinking about the narrative around the importance of your program. Because when we talk about sustainability, being able to show and demonstrate that impact is not only crucial to the funding and resource aspect of it, but also our communities need to know the work that you are making possible with your schools. So I thank you for the opportunity to join you here at the start of this summit. I want to thank the incredible team from PED that works on this and making this possible. I want to thank Greg for the work that he's been doing and helping to lead this work as well and make this summit possible, along with all of those sponsors who were mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. And most importantly, I know many of you have different summer plans and different summer activities that you could be doing. You chose to spend this summit here with us, and we thank you for that investment of your time. So I hope that you continue to use this investment of your time and appreciate it for the impact that it will have on you as a professional. So thank you all for the work that you do, and I look forward to seeing the outcomes of everything that you're able to accomplish here in this summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. We are going to be transitioning into our first plenary session, and just wanted to reiterate, thank you for all the work that you're doing up there at PED, and also all the people from the U.S. Department of Education. Thank you for joining this session. So the first plenary session is Barriers to Collaborative Leadership. It is being led by Amanda Barella from the Las Cruces Public Schools Community School District, and also Julia Bergen, the Executive Director of her Community Schools of New Mexico.
Thank you, Greg. Can you all hear me? And Amanda, is there a way for Amanda and I to both be perfect? Yay. Thank you, Greg. So I'm Julia Bergen. I'm the Director of Communities and Schools of New Mexico. We are a part of a national community school network, currently based in Santa Fe for the last 10 years, and this past year expanding into Rio Arriba County. And Amanda?
Hi, I'm Amanda Barella. I'm the District Coordinator of Community Schools in LCPS. We currently have 4 community schools and we're opening 2 more next year. So excited to be here.
So many thanks to you, Greg, and also thank you to Secretary Stewart for his thoughtful comments. And I just wanted to acknowledge that really at the center of all of this community school work are our children and their families and children's success in school and in life. And I really appreciated Secretary Stewart emphasizing community. And I think this past year of pandemic has really demonstrated to all of us that without our wider community, it would have been really, really difficult to ensure that kids could remain engaged in virtual learning and have some really essential resources provided to them on a regular basis. In the work that Communities in Schools does, we emphasize and talk a lot about the relational aspect of the work, that so much of our work is about building trusting, lasting relationships with students, with staff, and with families. Community and strong relationships are at the heart of community school work. So Amanda and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today to speak with all of you. I'm going to just restate what it is that we would like to see as an outcome of this session. To really increase awareness of site and system level barriers to shared collaborative leadership and strategies to strengthen collaborative leadership within your school and district. And I'm going to just remind everyone, if you could, to please mute, because it's a little tricky for me to talk and Amanda to talk over you. Thank you so much. So in the community school landscape and in the work of building strong relationships to build robust, sustainable community schools, collaboration is key. And the way to achieve strong collaborative leadership is really by engaging with your school community, your students, your families, and the wider community that exists around your school, comprised of a diverse and engaged population of people from agencies and within families and across broad sectors who are committed to strong, successful schools and children, but who may not have an easy path to be engaged in a community's school. And that's one of the beauties of the collaborative leadership aspect of community schools. It opens a door and allows folks to step into schools, to work collaboratively with a broad and diverse group of people, really looking at what are strengths and assets and what are the barriers and obstacles to student and school success. So in order to really support all of you as community school leaders, we want to be sure that we understand deeply what have been the challenges and barriers for you in building collaboration within your community school strategy and plan? So what we're hoping this morning is that we can engage in a meaningful and rich discussion with all of you to listen to your perceptions and experiences as a community school administrator. Our outcomes, we hope, will be to gain a deeper understanding of shared concerns across the state within your school, and to build relationships amongst all of us here today as a way of really building more of a foundation around our community school work. And we're also looking for solutions. We want to find and hear the strategies that you've been able to use to really begin working with that wider network of collaborators as a way of building a strong community school network in your district within the schools in which you work. Does that all sound clear? Did I leave anything out, Amanda? Okay.
I don't think
So the first thing that we wanted to do, just to ground us all, is get a sense of who's here today, and what school or district you're a part of, and whether or not you are a recipient of a New Mexico State Public Education grant for planning or implementation of a community school strategy, or you're funded privately by some other means. And you can put those responses in the chat. Amanda and I just thought that that would help give us some context and a sense of who's here in the room with us this morning. And if anyone, yeah. So if you want to just put your name, school, and how your community school is funded in the chat, that would be great. Is that working?
We're also going to do our best to try and compile this information with no names or schools attached to it, just so that we have some information from administrators' perspectives around the state about maybe what some needs are that you're having or challenges that you're encountering. So we hope that we can use this information to incorporate y'all's voice.
It's also nice to see some familiar faces or names. So thank you. As you're entering your information, it's nice to know who's here because we can't see all of you. And as you all continue to do that, and again, thank you, your name, your school or district, and whether or not you're receiving funding from the public education department. There's several folks here today who have a partnership with communities in schools, and the funding for that work comes from our nonprofit, as well as being recipients of public education department grants. And one of the things that we are seeking to have in place as a part of a larger community school strategy is a strong braided funding approach. So a nice healthy mix of public and private dollars to really ensure long-term sustainability of the work. So thank you to those of you I know with whom we've been working for many years. I'm so glad you're here today. The next thing that Amanda and I really wanted to find out is to hear from you a little bit about what you value the most as an educator, a leader, or an individual within the scope of education work that you do. What really matters most to you in your work as educators? And you can write it in the chat. You're also welcome to raise your hand and tell us. We'd love to hear your voices and see your faces. And the reason we're asking this is really we want to know who you are, and we want to know how you feel about both the positive and the challenge related to the work you do as educators, as community school leaders, as teachers, and other. Amanda, do you want to share a thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me, definitely one of my core values is justice and equity, social justice. I'm a social worker, so worked in education for 10 years, but that's really, my kind of core value and guiding principle. And in the work that I do, it's the lens that I see things from.
And for myself as an educator, I've seen so much inequity and both across funding in schools and access and significant differences in quality of what's provided to children, especially those who are living in more rural, higher poverty regions. And I see a community school strategy as a really significant means by which to create greater justice and equity. Would anyone like to share? Someone writes, for me, what matters first is students to have their basic needs met. What is crucial is relationships with our students and their families and interconnected goals for progress and sustainability. Trish Garrity says, always start with the heart. Students need love, support, and caring adults. Relationships, absolutely. Core and central to the work. Relationships. So you're free to continue populating chat with ideas, thoughts. Please don't hesitate. We're recording the session and we'll capture your thoughts into notes later, but we'll move on. One thing that Amanda and I also were really interested in hearing from some of you is what worked over this last exceedingly challenging year and what didn't, a high and a low. What were some things related to your community school work that you felt was successful or not successful? And that will also help inform our conversation about how we can step into this arena of really building strong collaborative partnership and leadership. And anyone is welcome to raise their hand and share, or you can share in the chat. One high and one low of the past year.
And that can be in
Oh,
relation to community
Sorry.
schools or just, you know, being an administrator over the last year in general.
Thanks, Trish. Trish Garrity is the principal at Nino Taro, and we've enjoyed a wonderful partnership with that school for the last 4 years. We have 2.5 coordinators at that school. One of the things that we learned at Communities in Schools was that because we've been working in schools for many years, we already had strong relationships established. And when schools closed, everyone had to adjust and pivot. We already had direct contact with students and families, and that made it easier to check in and find out where they were. Did they have money? Did they have stable housing? Did they have access to food? What kind of financial support did they need? Because we saw so many families who lost their jobs overnight. One low by Dana. Thank you, Dana. SEL issues with remote learning and no social interaction was a low. A high gave us an opportunity to think outside the box to help with those issues. The high, relationships with partners. A low, navigating the politics out there with partners. And then we'd like to shift to asking you to share just a brief 1-sentence vision that you have in your mind for your community school. Brenda writes, our success was reaching and engaging students. Our school worked diligently to build relationships. Communities and schools helped so many of our families with basic needs. Our struggle was not being able to reach all of our struggle was not being able to reach all families and keep students engaged. Thanks, Brenda. I think that was a challenge for everyone, the digital divide, as it were. Building our community needs assessment with our council and being able to work with partners to address the highest needs and support families. So I see some common threads, which is wonderful. And I'm again wondering if anyone would just like to share what is their vision for their community school. Amanda, thank you. To provide students with all they deserve in order to ensure they all have an equitable chance at success. Beautiful. Thank you, Amanda. Michelle, to work with the community to meet the need of our students and families. So based on that, those visions, whether you've shared them in chat or not, they really help inform what it is that you're ultimately trying to achieve, and can also really help you define or identify who it is that you need to be able to bring into your collaborative leadership team for your school. And the next question we wanted to ask was, how do you define your school's values, and are these shared with your team and your community? And that's a big question. And that's one of the questions I think that emerges when you're beginning the work of establishing your collaborative leadership team. Who's at the table? What are different people's thoughts and ideas? And what are their, and how that leads to a shared vision. Amanda, do you want to share a little bit about your schools or district's community school values?
Well, the core values, I mean, most certainly, the pillars, collaborative leadership, striving, working towards, expanding that not only at sites, but across the larger systems and into the community. I mean, the value is always what is best for children, but increasing, equity, making education more equitable for all students.
And as you've built your collaborative leadership team, are those values shared in common with the other folks that are participating?
I think there's varying degrees of that, right? I mean, collaborative leadership, I think, is confusing and, can get kind of muddied. And as you, move across systems, it can be challenging to establish, healthy kind of protocols of collaborative leadership and having those effective teams that truly are equitable, right, and representative. So I think that's ongoing work, always.
So I think a nice segue at this moment would be to really hear a little bit from all of you about how you were able to step into some aspect of that collaborative leadership and practice pillar. And if you were able to do so successfully, what did that look like and how? And if not, what were some of the barriers to starting to engage with the larger community?
And I think if some people could verbally share, that would be nice.
Yeah, I agree. I know it's early, but you should have had at least 1 cup of coffee.
And no need to raise your hand. You can just unmute and share.
I'll go. Break the ice for everybody.
Okay.
I think that collaborative leadership, especially with dealing with partners, I like how someone mentioned that a challenge has been the politics that come from competing partners. I think that we have felt that in our district. And I feel like that's very difficult. And the way that we've navigated through it is really being solid in providing what students deserve. And I think when you keep the conversation with that as a foundation, it's hard for the politics to get in the way because no one could really argue around that. I think, we're in this field for kids. And so when we keep the conversation focused on what kids deserve, and we look at the data and we look at the needs that are kind of very apparent within our needs assessment, there's no argument that can be made. So I think just keeping those conversations based on that has really helped us in our success and building relationships with partners. I think our partners see that that's a focus of ours. And so it works nicely. I think it's really led to our success, and it's all, like, we probably say that 1,000,000 times a day at Cesar. Whether that's instructionally or, through our community initiative, is like, well, what do kids deserve? Like, if you're going to present an initiative, it has to tie to data, and it has to be truly what our students in our community deserve and will benefit them. So I think if you keep that at the center, it eliminates some of the challenges that come from collaborative leadership.
Thank you for sharing that. Other people share.
I don't mind sharing. My name is Brenda Ballard and I work in Las Cruces Public Schools. Lynn, I'm the principal at Lynn Middle School. And so we were the first school that started as a community school in Las Cruces. But I didn't start when the school became a community school. I started after. So we were already in the process of, the school had already been in the process. They had already done their needs assessment and had already done a lot of the work before I became the principal. And so I think it was very challenging for me as an experienced administrator coming in and really changing my thinking about what administration could look like at a community school, and really developing the partnership with my community schools coordinator that was really a partnership, right? I mean, more than the principal and a support person, it's really like a marriage of two people doing what's good for kids and really thinking about things differently. The other thing that I came into really, and through no fault of anyone, just changes in leadership, was the fact that the people in the school, like teachers, really felt like my community schools coordinator was the community school. So like she was the person that did anything related to community schools and it had nothing to do with them. And so really trying to bring ownership to teachers about, hey, we are the community school and it's a way of thinking and a way of being. And so it's a way of looking at things differently and saying, okay, do we have to do everything the same as everyone else, or can we look at barriers and try and act on those a little bit differently? And so it really was a big shift in my thinking as an administrator, but also I really had to be very purposeful in how I was presenting things to the staff, so that that Sylvia and I weren't two different entities, the principal and the community schools coordinator, but more of a team, and that this team was part of that team, so they weren't separate. So it's just been a very interesting, it's a piece to navigate, and I think it's hard when people first begin to start as a community school sometimes.
Thank you, Brenda, for sharing that. Insightful, right? You know, kind of your journey with all of that.
Thank you, Brenda. So I hear that building the team from within is really, really essential. Good for you. Congratulations. Would anyone else like to share? So among all of us here, who makes up your current collaborative leadership team? When Brenda speaks about building that strong community within the school and introducing the idea and values behind what is a community school. Brenda, I don't know if you want to share who did you start to pull in to be a part of your site-based leadership team? And then how are you engaging outwardly to the community to build that community collaborative team?
So we really started with, we have a school leadership team that's made from different people in different departments, including our classified and certified staff members, because it's important to value everybody's part of the team, no matter what the job is, right? And then we also included the students and parents and community members and partners. So it was a challenge. It wasn't like something that happened overnight, but it is something that's grown a little bit more. And then of course, during the pandemic, it kind of fell apart again, but we're working on reestablishing everything. But we do have what we call a community schools advisory council. And so that meets monthly, and it includes teachers, administrators, community school staff from the school, and our students and our parents and community partners. So it does have everyone. And we go back to like our 90-day plan that has to be done through the public education department. And we also talk about our implementation grant and how those work together to drive the needs of our, like, to help us meet the needs that we have in our school. And so we really want input from all of those stakeholders. And it's hard because people think, you know, we know it because we're the employees, right? So it's hard to get people to really give us opinions, but it's been very insightful. We got some really good information about some very important community needs related to Lynn in our last CSAC meeting. So.
Nice. Thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome.
For communities in schools, obviously connecting to the school staff, administrative staff, teachers was always really a first step. But then also wellness teams who are often within our district, a combination of social workers and counselors, but making sure that our coordinators were a part of the wellness team really created greater cohesion around what were some of the identified barriers overall for the school community, but then for those individual students that really, really needed more targeted support and care. And I think, again, to Brenda's earlier point, when you start from within and build that culture within your school community, it makes bridging outward and finding the right community partners a lot easier. But having that buy-in is really essential.
Yeah, Julia, do you want to switch to the Padlet activity since we're kind of, we have about like 7.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, but everyone has to post on the Padlet since you're not very chatty this morning. Okay, so I posted the link in the chat. I just started using Padlet, so I'm proud of myself and I like it. Let's hope I pull it off. Okay, so you just click on it and then we're all going to be looking at the same Padlet so everyone can see it right on my screen. And for nobody that, if you haven't used Padlet before, it's really cute. So you just click the little plus sign down here on the bottom right and you can post something and it's kind of like a little sticky note. But if you see something that someone else posted and you're like, oh, I was going to post that too, you can click the little heart and you can like it. And so you don't need to say that if someone's already said it, you can just go ahead and like it. And it gives us kind of a visual of, you know, how many people were thinking the same thing. So I don't know, why is it posting hi? Okay. And so what we were really hoping to get out of this is for people to be able to post, you know, what do you feel like are the biggest barriers to shared leadership? And this could be internal or external. It could be internal things to you, like, you know, it's kind of, why is it posting weird things like that on the Padlet? So these could be, you know, internal things like, you know, it kind of scares me, or, you know, I feel like I'm unsure how to, the Padlet is going insane. Oh my gosh, please stop doing that, Padlet. You know, it can be internal things. It's saying I'm posting. No, someone else. Okay, someone's posting something.
I'm just going to jump in. So if we could wait to comment on Padlet, because if you start typing, it's going to populate on the screen. So I know you're all excited to get started on typing. So let's wait for the instructions and then type on Padlet. Thank you, everybody.
So yeah, but you know, it could be internal, you know, barriers that you feel that you struggle with. It could be barriers at your site. It could be barriers within your district or your community, anything that you feel like has been difficult for you with shared leadership. So yeah, you guys can go ahead and start posting now. Time, yes, that is a huge one, I would imagine. I'm going to like that because I agree. Time. Oh, it was other people posting. I'm so crazy. I thought it was me because I saw my little picture, but that was just, I was like,
not enough support, getting everyone on the same page.
Yep, time. That's got to be a big one.
Lots of stakeholders. How to
feeling
involve
that you don't have enough support. And it'd be helpful too, like be specific, like, so where would that support need to come from? Where do you feel like that support is missing?
upper level management.
Like, right, district system level staff? Getting everyone on the same page. Dedicated person to your administration. Yeah, I know I've talked to other districts around the country, and some of the larger community schools endeavors will have a community school district administrator who's just working with all the administrators. And then, you know, there might be someone just doing the administrative staff, and then another person who's working with just the coordinators. So yeah, as these things expand, that the district then has different administrative district, or, you know, if it's structured like Julia's, the lead partner agency.
Somebody's written how we get district leadership plugged into the important work that we do, meaning you, a principal at a community school. And that buy-in is really essential. You want to be sure that your district is behind you 100%.
Yeah, like I know in my district, you know, an idea that I had was developing a district level steering committee, right? And getting kind of all the important people that tend to make decisions that influence community schools in the same room talking about community schools. Understanding dual supervision for the role. Yeah.
So I think we should shift to the second part of the question, and we'll use the same Padlet. Thanks for the Padlet. I love it. What has been helpful to you in increasing collaboration and collaborative leadership and practice within your work?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a separate Padlet page for that, Amanda?
No, I think it would be good for us to put it on the same one, because then we're seeing the barriers and you know,
Sure.
whatever
So this page
supports
just
that you feel like you need. Yeah. Like what supports do you feel like you need to address these barriers, or if anyone has ideas as to what you feel like might be helpful in terms of solutions to these barriers to shared leadership. Support for all the projects, like internal, like at a site level, like leaders within the school. Oh, somebody put time management again.
So again, I just want to reiterate that we want to see some of your comments about what's been helpful in increasing your collaborative leadership capacity.
Yep, either things, yeah, and it could be things that you have done that you found were helpful, or things that you think might be helpful, or any kind of maybe technical assistance you feel like you need.
Building authentic relationships with the team. I love that. Starts with healthy, trusting relationships.
Yeah,
Share.
the dual supervision role, right? Because you're having to fulfill all the duties of being an administrator and then a community schools administrator. Working with feeder schools, yes, that can be extremely helpful, partnering with feeder schools, sharing partners.
And we have just a couple of more minutes. Really thank you all for your engagement and for sharing your thoughts and ideas. And we will be gathering up your comments and circling back.
Mhm.
If you have any final thoughts you'd like to share, whether on a Padlet or out loud, we'd love to hear your voices. Let us hear what you're thinking, and we hope that this was helpful as we step into the rest of the day and also tomorrow. So thanks everyone for your thoughtfulness and your time.
Yes, thank you. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of the summit.
Thank you, Julia and Amanda, for leading this session. I really appreciate the work that you put into this and the thoughtfulness. If you had any final comments to add on to the Padlet, you can do that as I'm just wrapping this up and transitioning. What I really heard and a lot of the cool takeaways that the work that we're doing here is transformative. We are rethinking how we are accessing and partnering with our stakeholders. We're collaborating in a really unique way. It's just, and again, the word that comes to my mind is it's transformative. And so to summarize some of the comments that we saw both in the chat and also the Padlet, we're using data in a different way. We're doing needs assessments. We are building relationships with the stakeholders in the community, and also building the relationships in our school in a very different way, but it's a very impactful way. Collaboration, and that's really the centerpiece of today's summit is that that collaborative and shared leadership. And so many of the comments talked about rethinking the way that we fund the community school coordinator, rethinking how we foster that connection with that very vital and important piece in our school. And then there are some things that we need to go further. And I saw a lot of comments about administration and district management, and perhaps different ways. So as the summit goes on, maybe we could rethink about how we need to engage with those pivotal manager pieces, because that might be one of the missing pieces. I also heard a lot of community school advisory council, 90-day teams, and just how all that ties in together. So that is actually the transition. What we do is we have a hidden break in here. I know that coffee level may be depleting. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a 5-minute break. So we're going to return back here at 10 o'clock. So make sure that you caffeine up or you do whatever you need to do. So we are going to be on break for the next 5 minutes. See you in 5. I am, according to my time, it is now 10 o'clock. And so we're going to be jumping into our first professional development session. We have one of two that you can choose from. In the first room, we have Sean Morris, the principal of RFK Charter School in Albuquerque. He has been a community school principal for 7 years. And I know Sean because he was the community school principal that my wife worked as an English language learner teacher under his administration. And we also have Dr. George Otero, the director for the Center of Relational Learning. And so he will be talking about how do we build those authentic relationships in the communities that you work in. So we will be populating 2 breakout rooms, and you may choose one or the other. And if you're here with your assistant principal, you could choose one, and your other support may go to that other one. So we'll let you choose. and we're just working on getting those the breakout rooms to populate. Welcome back, everyone. On our schedule, as I said right before the break, we will have 2 different sessions. The first is Yazzie versus Martinez implications, and for community school leaders. And the second session is the principal community school coordinator relationship. And so we're in the process of populating those breakout rooms for us all to join. And thank you all for coming back. And it looks like we actually may even picked up a few more people after the break, which is glad to see you. Welcome, welcome. Welcome back, everyone. Before we jump into our next session, I just wanted to thank both presentations. I had an opportunity to be in both rooms and just was amazed with all the information that was presented. So thank you both, John and Marco and Charlton and Jake for all the information that you were able to share. We're going to be jumping into our next speaker. Elson Nash. Mr. Nash is the acting director of the U.S. Department of Education Schools of Choice. And what that basically means is he oversees both charter and community schools. And when I got to speak with Elson earlier, leading up to this conference, I was stunned and amazed by how well he not only knows community schools, but he knows the players here in New Mexico. He knew the exact precise number of community schools here in the state. He knows Jose Munoz, and this is the real expert here at the Department of Education. So I just wanted to give a warm welcome to Mr. Nash. So the floor is yours, sir.
Wow, thank you, Greg. I just want to thank everyone. I had the opportunity to sit in on a couple of sessions earlier, and you all are doing tremendous work in New Mexico. So kudos to all of you for the incredible work that you're doing, and I'm sure the work that you will be doing in the not too distant future. You all are right there in the thick of it. And the sessions that I attended earlier really exemplify that. What I want to do is to just give you a little context nationally on what's going on. A little bit about me. Can you all hear me? Yes, okay, cool. I do want to share my screen if possible. Yep, thank you, Danette. So I've been here at the Department of Education for about 8 years. And prior to that, I was at the Corporation for National and Community Service. And at the Corporation for National Community Service, I ran a program called Learn and Serve America that connected to school districts, nonprofits, and higher education institutions that were focused on service learning. And that really was one of the areas in which, as a funder, I really skinned my knees on this work. And I was there for 10 years. And then after that, came here to the Department of Education, ran or have been running full service and Promise Neighborhoods for, as I said, about, well, going on 9 years next week, and expanded my portfolio 6 months ago as acting director of the Division of School Choice and Improvement Programs, which includes magnet schools, statewide family engagement centers, the Opportunity Scholarship Centers, and 3 other scholarship programs that are focused on school choice. Excited about the work of full service community schools because this is full circle for me. I worked as a graduate student in Atlanta 25 years ago in the city of Decatur school system, expanded very similar model. It was a model based on the James Comer work out of New Haven. And I helped establish the program there in the city of Decatur that eventually became a statewide program in Georgia. And so this, to go to full service community schools, where in the Biden administration, we are literally expanding the potential to expand from a $30 million program to a $500 million program. It's a little daunting, but it's also exciting because we then have the opportunity to do the types of things that you all are doing in New Mexico and other states. But not only doing it statewide, but then drilling down district-wide. And so what I want to give you is, here's the overview of the purpose of our program. This is our authorized language. You can look it up, but it encourages the academic, social, and health service partnerships, the wraparound supports that many of you all have been talking about in these sessions. The integration of effective services for children and families in high poverty schools, including rural schools. And so that's what you all are doing. You're trying to figure out how do we get funding for this? How do we, as leaders of our schools, organize it in a way that connects well to the academic setting and the academic supports? We're thinking about that as well at the macro level. And so here it is in terms of the services that are provided or should be provided in terms of improving educational outcomes. And we literally have a full list of about 10 different services that can be provided. From the standpoint of a grantee or applicant, no, you don't have to have every service. The idea is to have not less than 3 that you are working on, and then you expand it to 2 additional services at 2 or more public elementary schools. So how does that relate to the types of things that you all are doing? So the idea would be, if at the district, or if you were a charter school, a charter management organization, decided to apply for one of our grants, you would have to be 2 or more schools, right? So you would have to collaborate with one of your colleagues in another school, and then get the district or a nonprofit. So in one of the sessions, I think it was John or Sean was talking about connecting to nonprofits that are working closely with the school. You could potentially work through a nonprofit as the lead, or the district could be the lead. That's the flexibility that we provide. And so there, what's in front of you is the requirements, those 3 existing services, and then expanding to 2 more services. One of the critical things that you all need to have at each school, which you probably already know about, but is a requirement of the grant, is a full-time coordinator. I'm sure that's something that Jose Munoz will be talking about, meaning that role of the coordinator, the critical nature of that coordinator working with you, school leadership, to make sure that those services are provided and to assist in gathering data. And so those are the types of things in terms of use of funds that you see right there in front of you.
And Mr. Nash, were you meaning to
Yes.
share your screen? Because
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I
just wanted to make sure that you were
able.
able to share that screen.
I am so sorry, Greg. I hit screen share. Let me see. so sorry. Can you all see it now? You can. All right, fantastic. Sorry about that. So back to the issue, I'm gonna move forward. All right. I talked about the types of applicants and the responsibilities of who will manage the grant. Carrying out the activities. Of course, being a Fed, we want to make sure that we're able to have someone be responsible for managing the grant, and that's where we have either the district or a nonprofit that serves as the lead. The important thing is that you all are working together. And so just as we're suggesting that a specific grantee at the local level are working together as partners, at the meta level, you're also working closely to each other. The interesting thing about what you see here in terms of amount of funding, this may change drastically. At the bare minimum, we will have 13.6 million, which would result in about 30 new awards. The possibility of having $500 million, I said that right, $500 million, means we will have many, many more applicants and many, many more awards. And that's why I think it is an opportunity for you all to think about applying, and it may end up being, multiple applicants from the state. We will be working on potential rulemaking. What that means is that we may end up changing the program somewhat. If we do go to rulemaking, it will be public, so you all will have the opportunity to provide insights. But we do feel fairly strongly that the program will get extra money, and I'm sure after my presentation, the senator will probably talk about some of the things that the Senate is interested in with the program. I think that's important for you all to realize, because you're positioned well, given the experience of your individual institutions, but collectively as a state as well. There is a cost sharing match for the program, but the neat thing about this is that you have the opportunity to propose the match. So it's not like us at the Fed imposing on you. We're suggesting you present your best foot forward in terms of what you would like the match to be. And I think that's the best scenario to be in terms of proposing a match as opposed to us imposing upon you. And then the other thing, for those of you who are just starting out, there's the opportunity for planning. If you need to use half a year, and we've seen that, 10% of the total amount of funding can be used for planning. So I think that's something that's important for you all to consider. As I mentioned before, we have something that's called an absolute priority, which means at a bare minimum, 2 or more schools need to apply. So if you are working with another school, you would, or multiple schools, you would all plan together to work as one as an applicant. And that's that whole thing that I talked about earlier about having a consortium or a group application that is either led by the district, or it could be led by a nonprofit on your behalf. I mentioned before the eligible services. Those are listed there, and I can send this presentation to Greg, and he'll share it with you all. The important piece here that I think is critical is that you all look at the requirements of the application. fairly straightforward, but it's still critical to address every piece of the requirements that are listed in this application. And they're fairly extensive, right? But it's not out of the realm of things that you all are not already doing. The other piece that occurred during this last year, we had what's called competitive preference priorities. The previous administration, meaning the Trump administration, had a focus around rural communities. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case in this next iteration. For sure, we will definitely have something that's called broadly represented consortium. So once again, how is it that you are working closely with your partners? You'll have to demonstrate that. And then the history of effectiveness. So it's not just you're working closely with your partners, but you're being effective in doing that and you're demonstrating. So it would be important for you to show how you are effective in your partnerships. Once again, if we're expecting folks to do that at the local level, how are you doing it kind of at the meta level, walking the talk, so to speak? And then evidence-based strategies. So the one thing, I'm sure you all have talked about this throughout the conference, the idea that your strategy should be based in evidence, promising evidence as defined in the notice. But that's something we at the federal level have really started to embrace. And part of the reason is because at the congressional level, they've embraced this notion of evidence-based practices. And then here's the breakdown, just so that you know on how these are rated and the breakdown in the different parts of the applications. Something called project design, adequacy of resources, management plan, the services, and then of course, the evaluation. I'm not going to go deeply into each one because I want to make sure I have enough time for you all to ask questions of me, but it is important for you all to look at each of the selection criteria. When you think about the timing of this, typically for the last almost 3 years, it's either been January or February that we have released the notice. So gauge your time around that in 22. However, so here's the however, if we have to go to rulemaking, add another 60 days to that. So just so that you have an idea on, and I get a lot of calls and emails, when are you going to release the notice? When are you going to release the notice? Typically it's been January, February, but if we have to go to rulemaking, add another 60 days to that. The other piece that we always have to do is, this is how we report back up to Congress. We have what's called the Government Performance Result Act measure. And it's basically an output, and it's the targeted services, the number of individuals, children, and families targeted for services that receive services. And here are the components. Many of you have MOUs between your partners. Make sure that you highlight those MOUs, include your resumes. There's some, the documentation of the match, meaning your proposal, and then, of course, the required forms and assurances. And that's pretty much it that I wanted to share with you. The other thing that I think is really important for you all to think about, even if you don't apply to be a grantee, apply to be a peer reviewer. And the reason that's important is, one, your perspective, your knowledge, your skills, your experience in what you are currently doing means you're an expert. And so having your expertise valued by us is important. So being a peer reviewer will help us. It will also help you. So if you don't apply this go round, you'll get a sense of what we're looking at. That's an important piece. And at the same time, you get a chance to earn a little bit of money. So definitely think about being a peer reviewer if you do not apply. The other thing is you have the opportunity to look at our, we post the winning applications on our website. And so if you want to get a sense of what those applications are like, go to our website. I'll also include that when I send it to Greg, and you'll get a chance to just look at some of those applications that were winning applications. And that will be pretty straightforward as an example of what you can do. And with that, I will stop the screen sharing and then go for any questions that you all have of me.
There's a question in the chat that's asking, how do you become a peer reviewer?
Yes, so similarly, there is a call for peer reviewers that we normally send out. We also list it on our website. The other thing is you can always send your resume to me, and I will make sure that you are included with our contractor on the selection of peer reviewers. Any other questions? I'm sure you all feel like you're talked at quite a bit. So if there's anything else that you would like to know, please let me know. My email address, Greg also has it, but for anyone at the Department of Ed, it's their first name dot last name at ed.gov. So elson.nash@ed.gov. You should be able to get to our website through www.ed.gov or oesc.ed.gov. That would be helpful too. Trying to think other things. Oh yeah, so there are a couple of other things that I think is important for you all to think about. There is a blue ribbon, kind of what I call a blue ribbon commission that is working on the next generation of community schools. If you look up Brookings Institution and community schools, you will see background information on the commission that has been developed. Leading organizations that are involved in the community school movement are participating in it. I'm sure Jose will tell you a little bit more about it tomorrow. But the reason that's important is they too are thinking about those types of things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. How are we integrating the work of community schools into the academic setting? How are we impacting children? How are we impacting families? How are we impacting and including leadership like yourselves in the decision-making? All of those things are things that point to valuing your expertise and leadership. And when we do, if we do go to rulemaking, I think your insights and expertise are really going to be important to how we shape the next generation of full service community schools. And Greg, I think you were probably going to ask something or mention something to me.
I wasn't going to
oh, I'm sorry.
ask you anything, but I was going to mention the fact that last summer I was a TSL grant reviewer for US Ed, and that process is really, really incredible, because not only do you see, your innovation begets innovation. You see what other sites are doing, and then you are able to then take those ideas away. But the second part is you be sharing out your own expertise. And I think New Mexico is we're on the forefront of community schools, and so being able to be part of that process, whether it was the Brookings institution or just being a part of being connected with the United States Department of Education is a fantastic way to share our expertise. And the whole theme of this summit is collaboration and shared leadership. So we're kind of interweaving the local, the state, and the national all into that framework.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Looks like David Greenberg has a question. Dave?
Yeah, thanks, Annette. And I think I could also talk about this separately, but I was just wondering for the next round, you know, we understand that the previous applicants, there was a little bit of a interruption in the grant cycle. Will the next grant cycle be totally open, or is there any sort of special process for the previous applicants, you know, or is that sort of just a, you know, when it opens up again, it'll just be kind of everybody on an even playing field?
Yeah, great question, David. It will be opened up everyone on the even playing field. However, if you know of anyone, meaning an organization that applied, that wants to receive the feedback from their application, have them contact me. I will personally pull those comments and send them to them. Why is that important? One, once again, it was an unfortunate pulling of the review. I mean, that was something, trust me, we were already through the process and it got pulled, and sometimes that happens and I get it. But the work that applicants and communities and districts did is a lot. And so the one thing that I think will be helpful to them is those reviewer comments, because we had completed everything. So absolutely, if you know of anyone who applied, I will send those reviewer comments to them. They can then use that for the next go round, because fundamentally the program is not going to change. There might be some tweaks here and there, but I think they can literally use some of that information from that proposal for the new one.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those questions, everybody. And Mr. Nash, thank you for sharing your expertise in the process for getting that federal support in our community schools. We are going to be transitioning into our final keynote speaker. U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich represents New Mexico on the both as our state as our senator, but he also represents us on the national level. Mr. Heinrich was not able to attend. Something came up in his schedule, but he recorded this message specifically for us in our summit. And so we're very grateful to have his support in this process. He is a firm supporter of the community schools process. And so we do thank Senator Heinrich.
Hi, I'm Senator Martin Heinrich. It's my honor to welcome all of you to the first statewide Community School Summit in New Mexico. If this past year's school year has taught us anything, it's just how important our schools are to the families and to the communities that they serve. But classroom teachers can't do it alone. It takes a robust network of integrated supports and staff to remove barriers to student learning. I'm so grateful to all of the educators, including our community school coordinators throughout New Mexico, who went above and beyond to keep students engaged in their education this year. Through this pandemic and economic crisis, our community school programs found creative ways to make sure parents could put food on the table and connected students to important services like healthcare, housing, and counseling. Thank you to all of the community school staff for all you do each and every day to make our schools the beating hearts of our neighborhoods. I am very optimistic that, especially with New Mexico's successful vaccination campaign, we will move back toward a more normal school year in the fall. But I know that the work to help our students and families succeed, it just never stops. As New Mexico's senator, I'm committed to delivering all of the resources New Mexicans need to recover from this pandemic. The American Rescue Plan that Congress passed earlier this year will deliver more than $1 billion in emergency funds to New Mexico's local public schools. This comes on top of the emergency support for New Mexico schools that was included in the previous COVID relief package that we passed in December. We purposely built flexibility into the American Rescue Plan to allow local school districts to use these funds to address the specific needs of our students, their educators, and their communities. First and foremost, I hope that these funds will help all of our schools safely return our kids, our teachers, our staff to in-person instruction and extracurricular activities. But I also hope we can put these funds to work in supporting and scaling the community school services that have been proven effective in supporting student success and family engagement. I also supported the expansion of the child tax credit in the American Rescue Plan, and I'm fighting to make that permanent. These payments will make a real difference in alleviating the challenges of child poverty that you see in your work every day. I am also proud to lead the bipartisan effort in the Senate to pass two-generation policies that coordinate, support services, and empower children and their families to achieve economic security and success together. We need to make sure our children have the support they need from their earliest years all the way through their K through 12 education and higher education. Full-service community schools are absolutely essential in making sure that all of our students and their families have the support they need to complete their education and achieve their goals. I am proud to be a co-sponsor of the Full Service Community School Expansion Act, and I fully support President Biden's budget request for $443 million for the Full Service Community School Program, which would be a substantial increase in funding. I'm hopeful that we can make real, lasting progress in supporting our kids and families by passing President Biden's American Families Plan. I'll do everything I can to get these big, bold investments across the finish line. Because if we can finally invest in New Mexico's children at the level that they deserve, there is no limit to what they can achieve. Thanks again.
Right. Thank you. I just want to thank all of you for attending day one of our first Community Schools Leadership Summit. There were so many incredible takeaways from all the various sessions. In the chat box, we are placing a spreadsheet, and that is a Google Doc. And we want you back tomorrow. We want you back with your teams, your community school coordinator teams. And so what we're going to ask for you to do is open up this link and please place the emails of those who will be joining you so that we can put you all in those breakout rooms so that you can collectively have that space to begin some of this process. So we're going to be going a little bit deeper into some various frameworks tomorrow. And I think it's just going to be we're just going to be building up on top of what the work that we started today. And so in summation, today we heard different funding streams, we heard different rules and implications behind that. We were able to collaborate in some of the breakout sessions. And then tomorrow, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be able to collaborate with our specific schools. And so that's what we're going to be doing. So if you could please, just a reminder, before you go today, open up that Google Docs sheet. Make sure that your email is there attached to your school and all the people that are going to be joining you. It might be your community school coordinator. If you had somebody on your council that you felt like would be a key collaborator, please add them to that list. So that's pretty much it for today. I'll be hanging around here if you had any questions or comments for a few more minutes. And so thank you, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.